Supreme Court shocks the nation with a unanimous 9-0 ruling that has instantly become the most talked about decision in recent memory, sending shockwaves through the gun-owning community, lawmakers, and legal experts alike. From the moment the opinion was announced, the country was forced to confront a reality that could fundamentally change the way Americans exercise their Second Amendment rights. This ruling doesn't just affirm constitutional carry, it introduces a sweeping magazine ban that could redefine the limits of gun ownership and enforcement across multiple states. Gun owners, advocates, and everyday citizens are left scrambling to understand what is legal, what is restricted, and what this landmark decision truly means for their future. For years, debates over gun rights have been intense, polarizing, and deeply rooted in the American psyche. The Second Amendment has always been a source of both pride and controversy, with citizens and lawmakers often finding themselves at odds over what rights it guarantees and what responsibilities it entails. This latest Supreme Court decision is different. A unanimous 9-0 ruling is virtually unheard of in such a contentious arena, signaling not only a reaffirmation of the right to bear arms, but also a recognition that certain limitations may now be enforceable. The magazine ban, a highly controversial element of the ruling, has sparked outrage among many gun enthusiasts who fear that their rights are being chipped away piece by piece, even as constitutional carry is upheld. The magazine ban is at the center of the storm. For decades, high-capacity magazines have been a standard component for lawful gun owners used in self-defense, recreational shooting, and professional training. The Supreme Court's decision to limit magazine capacity is unprecedented in its scope and clarity. Critics argue that restricting magazines undermines personal safety, handicaps responsible gun owners, and may create a slippery slope toward more restrictive firearm laws in the future. Supporters of the ban, on the other hand, claim it is a vital step toward reducing the lethality of mass shootings, pointing to statistics that show a correlation between high-capacity magazines and the number of casualties in tragic incidents. The balance struck by the Supreme Court, affirming carry rights while imposing magazine restrictions, is both bold and controversial, igniting nationwide debate about where liberty ends and public safety begins. Legal experts are already analyzing the ruling's ramifications in depth. The unanimous nature of the decision indicates a carefully considered approach by the justices, one that blends historical interpretation with contemporary societal concerns. The court references previous landmark cases on the Second Amendment, highlighting a careful balance between individual rights and collective responsibility. The decision is expected to serve as a foundation for future cases, potentially giving states the authority to regulate certain firearm components while safeguarding the core right to carry. This duality, however, has left many legal scholars predicting a wave of new lawsuits as stakeholders attempt to clarify the boundaries set by this ruling. Gun rights organizations have reacted swiftly, calling the ruling both a victory and a warning. Constitutional carry is celebrated as a landmark win, reaffirming the principle that law-abiding Americans have the right to bear arms without excessive restrictions. At the same time, the magazine ban is viewed as a troubling precedent, potentially paving the way for further limitations on gun accessories, ammunition types, and firearm features that have historically been considered essential. Several advocacy groups have already announced plans to challenge the magazine ban in court, arguing that it exceeds constitutional boundaries and infringes on individual freedoms. The legal battles that will unfold over the coming months could reshape American gun law for generations. Public reaction has been intense and deeply divided. Nationwide polls conducted after the ruling reveal that while most Americans support the right to carry firearms, there is also strong support for limiting magazine capacity. This split reflects the ongoing tension between protecting individual freedoms and ensuring collective safety, a tension that has defined gun policy debates for decades. The Supreme Court's ruling has become a focal point for both sides of the argument, fueling heated discussions in communities, legislative chambers, and online forums. The intensity of the debate underscores the ruling's significance and the lasting impact it will have on the nation's relationship with firearms. The political ramifications are immediate and far-reaching. Lawmakers in pro-gun states have expressed alarm at the magazine restrictions, promising to explore legislative workarounds or new state-level protections to preserve gun rights. Conversely, politicians advocating for stricter gun control are heralding the ruling as a crucial step toward meaningful reform, emphasizing the potential to reduce gun violence while maintaining a framework for lawful ownership. The decision has essentially forced every stakeholder, lawmakers, advocacy groups, law enforcement, and citizens, to reevaluate their strategies, priorities, and expectations in a post-ruling landscape. Understanding the Supreme Court's legal reasoning is crucial to grasping the full scope of its implications. The justices extensively referenced historical texts, prior rulings, and analyses of both individual rights and societal safety. They acknowledged that while the Second Amendment guarantees the right to bear arms, it does not exist in a vacuum. The decision highlights that certain restrictions, if narrowly tailored and justified by compelling safety concerns, may be permissible. By balancing constitutional rights with public interest, the court has created a nuanced legal framework that will influence not only future judicial decisions, but also legislative actions at both the state and federal levels. For gun owners, the ruling raises immediate questions. What happens to existing magazines? Are current purchases now restricted or prohibited? How will enforcement be implemented across different states? Legal experts advise that guidance from federal and state authorities will be critical in the coming weeks and months. Compliance will likely vary by jurisdiction, and understanding the specifics of local regulations is essential to avoid unintentional violations. This period of adjustment will be critical for gun owners seeking to maintain legal ownership while navigating the complexities introduced by the court's decision. The ruling also has implications for federal versus state authority. By affirming constitutional carry while imposing specific limitations, the Supreme Court has set a precedent for a delicate balance of power. States may now have greater flexibility to regulate certain aspects of firearms, while the federal government maintains overarching constitutional protections. This creates a legal landscape in which rights are preserved, but certain restrictions are clearly enforceable, setting the stage for future debates and judicial interpretation. Experts predict that the court's decision will become a central reference point for countless future cases involving gun rights, magazine restrictions, and the broader interpretation of the Second Amendment. Societal impacts are equally significant. Advocates for victims of gun violence argue that limiting magazine capacity could reduce the number of casualties in shootings, potentially saving lives and minimizing the scale of tragedies. Gun rights supporters warn that the ruling may erode trust between citizens and government, fueling perceptions of overreach and challenging long-held assumptions about freedom and personal responsibility. This ruling has ignited conversations in media, communities, and legislative bodies nationwide, emphasizing the ongoing struggle to balance safety, liberty, and responsibility in a society that values both individual rights and collective security. Economic ramifications are also beginning to emerge. Firearm manufacturers and retailers are carefully analyzing how the magazine ban will affect production, sales, and compliance. Some companies have indicated plans to redesign products to meet new legal standards, while others may face challenges in selling existing inventory. For gun owners, this means that access to certain types of magazines may become limited or more expensive. The ruling underscores how a single judicial decision can have cascading effects across multiple sectors, from law enforcement and legal compliance to consumer behavior and manufacturing practices. In essence, today's Supreme Court decision represents a pivotal moment in American history. It reaffirms the right to carry firearms while introducing a magazine ban that has already sparked intense debate and controversy. The implications extend far beyond the courtroom, influencing politics, society, economics, and the daily lives of millions of citizens. This ruling will dominate headlines, legal discussions, and public discourse for years to come. For gun owners, lawmakers, and citizens alike, understanding this decision, its nuances, and its consequences is more critical than ever. The Supreme Court has not merely issued a ruling, it has reshaped the landscape of American gun rights, setting the stage for a new era in which constitutional freedoms and public safety intersect in complex and unprecedented ways. As the nation absorbs the full weight of this historic decision, one thing is clear: nothing will be the same. Gun rights advocates and lawmakers must now navigate a new reality where constitutional carry is affirmed, but magazine restrictions challenge long-standing norms. Legal challenges are inevitable, debates will rage, and citizens will need to stay informed to understand their rights and responsibilities. The Supreme Court's 9-0 ruling is more than a headline. It is a turning point, a legal landmark that will be analyzed, contested, and referenced for generations. For anyone who owns a firearm or is invested in the debate over gun rights, this is a moment that demands attention, awareness, and action. The nation has witnessed a decision that could rewrite the law, redefine rights, and reshape the very fabric of how Americans interact with one of their most fiercely protected liberties,